That's welcome, welcome very, very much to Conversation. Great pleasure to welcome to the program a dear friend of mine, and as I've said on a number of occasions, the world. That being Carl Pearson, attorney, civil rights attorney, antitrust attorney, par excellence. And Carl, so good to see you again.
It's good to be back. I always enjoy the show. We can talk about anything here.
Absolutely. There's a lot to talk about. We were just sort of chatting and humping about the situation, humping about the situation in the world. A lot of problems fronting the world, and it's really getting into a fix where there is. We just saw a program this morning on our network where they're really getting worried about there's something systemic, really challenging the way the world has been set up, and that you and I might be very familiar with, but there's something really challenging at a systems level to the world, and the people who are in charge of that, politically and economically and so forth, are getting very worried about massive discontent. Can you read that in terms of the world society now, or American society?
You see it with people that are shooting for no reason. They're taking out their grievances. They don't know how else to do it. You have every 4 years sort of a false flag operation called an election. It doesn't do anything but reaffirm that the wrong people get into office, and it makes no difference to the people financing the Republicans and Democrats who wins. It makes no difference. There's not going to be any change at all. The rich are going to get richer. You're going to have an ever increasing concentration of the economy, and there will be consequences of that. You're going to have people unemployed necessarily. You're going to have people that are starving. You're going to have people that are going to be rioting if they don't get food, if they don't have shelter. You know, everything that we've expected in America is coming to an end, it looks like. Well, it is potentially that we're not going to have ever jobs for everyone. We're going to have a lot of people unemployed, people living at the very bottom. They're not going to be content with that. They think that every 4 years they're going to have another person come along and be their savior, but they never learn because the press doesn't tell them this, that it's a wasted exercise to think that every 4 years somebody's going to come along and help them out. When was the last time that occurred? It doesn't happen.
I'm wondering if what we're talking about. We've had the election system, and we've got this system we're tied into, but I'm wondering if it's something that is systemic to the situation. So rather than blaming somebody who's a bad guy or something like that, it's something that's systemic, built into. Well, one thing for certain is that the computer and the things cyber have are coming to take over virtually everything. Everything is being done by computer in a way that wasn't the case even 10, 15 years ago. I mean, it's just coming at this time, and it's going exponential. And so it's something systemic. It's not something as a result of bad policy. It's just that all the institutions have reified an outdated system that across the boards is being challenged by the technological extension of our consciousness, and it's structural, and it's just being addressed by who can get jobs for people in the traditional way when the jobs aren't going to be there. There's systems that can't be addressed within the normal.
If the means of production are monopolized, and that only the rich can get food as a result, is it possible that a government could condemn that property and take over the ownership and then be able to feed everyone by the property that's been condemned and purchased by the government?
Well, that would be like, let's just say for the hell of it, just talking in broad general strokes and everything, let's eliminate the private sector. Let's just have everything be a benevolent government or a socialist system that would be a lot of people's dream. Karl Marx and Engels spoke of that. And because the private sector is where a great deal of the production takes place. But, excuse me, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking that I saw that in the West Coast there's a proposal to condemn the properties where the residences are underwater and the people are getting set to lose their homes.
Right.
And rather than let the bank take those properties, the town could foreclose them for a heck of a lot less and let the people remain in there by paying a fair value for the property or for the use of the property. That's an interesting situation. If the mortgage is $600,000 and the property is only worth $200,000, the bank refuses to sell that property to the owner. But they sell it to a vulture fund, who then sues the owner, puts him out of the property, and gets a deficiency judgment for $400,000.
Yeah.
Why should the vulture fund be able to buy the home and the owner can't?
Why? You tell me, you're a man of the law.
Well, the answer is that this is politics.
Is politics,
It's
is
politics.
that economic?
No, it's politics.
Okay.
The laws are set up where the government is selling the homes to vulture funds to collect on the notes. They sell a $600,000 note for $200,000. They won't, and the property's only worth $200,000.
Okay.
They won't sell that property to the owner for $200,000, but they'll sell it to a bank or a vulture fund to put the homeowner out on his ass.
Okay, what I'm asking you is, why won't they do that?
Well, because you would lose the profitability of selling it to the vulture fund, where the friends would make a fortune putting people out of their homes.
They make a fortune by
forcing you out of your home.
And then what would they do with the home?
They resell it for whatever, but they have a deficiency judgment.
Well, I don't know what that means.
Okay, if a person owns a home that's mortgaged, and if there's a foreclosure, and the property is sold at auction. The other day, a person came to me and said that his home is worth $600,000. He owes $700,000 on it.
Okay.
They foreclosed and sold the property in Queens on the 4th floor on a Friday auction for $1,000, and now the court is entering a $599,000 deficiency judgment against him. The property was worth $600,000.
Yeah.
But the bank foreclosed and bought it back for $1,000.
That's criminal.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
But that's happening all over the country.
Why isn't there any?
Because you don't do anything about it. No one does anything about it. You have to be in court to do something about it.
Yeah.
If you complain to the politicians, I have this to say about that. That is that you never, ever go up to a person robbing an ATM and tap him on the back and say, "Excuse me, sir, but do you realize that you're robbing an ATM?" The Congress people know they're stealing. The president and everyone knows that they're stealing. They hope you don't know. But you can't tell them, "Hey, you're doing wrong." They know it. You're not going to get them to change your way by pointing out that they're stealing.
Has it always been like this?
Yeah.
It has always been. It's getting worse. Qualitatively worse?
Remember, the medium is the message.
Sure.
By
Mr.
controlling the
McLuhan.
medium, the media, they were able to divert people away from the truth, and now there's a new truth. It's whatever the media says. Whoever owns the media owns the message and controls things. So the solution, as I have said, has always been this. There is a solution to the problem.
Okay.
And if I can go into a town of 10,000 people and knock on every door and take the email address of every single person in that town, I then own the medium for that town.
Weren't you looking at a
I'm
specific
doing that.
place?
I am looking right now. I'm looking at Ellenville and
Ellenville's up in New
and
Paltz.
St. Paul and New Paltz. I'm looking at those two towns.
No, really.
Yeah,
New Paltz
yeah.
might be stomping grounds.
Well, I'm
That's
looking
a
at
great
both of
town,
them. I'm looking at both
Looking
right
at
now.
them to do what now?
Well,
Carl?
here's what I would do. I
Spell
would-
it out. What you're
here's
thinking.
what I-
Because you've always been entrepreneurial.
Here's what I want to do.
Uh-huh.
I want to have a team of 10 people. So
Okay.
I'm now very active in Occupy Wall Street at the,
Are you?
at the
Good,
highest level.
good,
At the
good.
highest level.
Good.
I'm
Glad to
very
hear it.
active.
Good for you. Yeah.
And some interesting things are going on. We undid the spending freeze last Saturday night. We stopped the freeze. We now are able to spend money again. That the General Assembly met and we decided to end the freeze. So,
I didn't know there
there
had
was
been
a
a
freeze on
okay.
spending. We're now dealing with that. But I think that Occupy Wall Street needs a way to express itself in a way that would be useful for the reforms that I think are needed.
Pragmatically. Yeah,
So
right.
I see the reform in a town that you can actually bring prosperity into a single town.
Right.
Easily. And it's done like this. Go into the town with 10 people.
Let's say New Paltz.
New Paltz.
All right.
With
Ellenville's across the
or
line.
Ellenville, across with a lot of reservation and a lot of land that's reserved, so it's a buffer between the two towns. There's a lot of
Which is the buffer?
There's a lot of land that
Yeah.
can't be built on as a buffer between those two towns.
Ellenville and New Paltz.
There's a lot.
New Paltz a college.
Yeah, there's about 20 miles of land that can't be built on.
Including the Shangguan
Right,
Mountains.
right.
Yeah.
So I've looked at the map and
It's
I'm
a
studying this
preserve,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Preserves,
Okay, go
yeah.
on. Go on.
So a team of 10 people, if you have a town of 10,000, 3,000 homes, a team of 10 people, each member would have to knock on 300 homes, doors. The doors are 300 homes.
Okay.
Once they do that, they take the email address of every single person in town.
If the people are willing to give it.
If they don't, then I will go to a friend and get it from him, who I will ask the friend to please communicate with this hard-to-reach person and explain that what we're doing is valuable to the town and that we urge that the recalcitrant person participate.
Would you have any authority to enforce that? You wouldn't?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. I mean, it's an opt-out list anyway. They can get on the list and opt out.
I used to have a paper route when I was a kid.
I did
had
too.
to have a count. I had to have people
I
who
did too.
signed
I had
up
the
that
green card, which I
didn't
punched.
put it on everybody's porch.
Remember the handlebar, the ring, and
the whole thing. Yeah, right,
green cards, and you punched every week.
Right,
okay,
right,
I did the same
right.
thing.
You did the same thing. I guess we all did.
in Omaha, Nebraska.
But we didn't
But let
get
me-
everybody.
Let me
on the
get
block,
back
you
now.
know. Okay, go on.
A team of 10 people go into the town and knock on every door, take the email address of everyone in town. Once I have the email address of every single person in town, what do I own?
Without exception?
Well, it
importantly?
doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. That's an irrelevant exception.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
I missed 4 people. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
5 people.
Okay.
Out of 10,000, I missed. The kids don't have an email, maybe, but maybe I don't want them anyway.
Yeah,
But
the
once
people who
I
don't
have, the email address of every single person in town,
Uh-huh.
let me ask you, what would you do if you had the email address of every single voter in the United States? What could you do with that?
Well, you could send messages out at a very low cost.
At no cost, right?
At no cost, virtually.
Would that be valuable?
It sure as hell would.
Why wouldn't that be valuable in a town?
Well, I don't know. It
Well,
seems
why-
to me it
well,
would be.
think
Why
about
aren't people doing that?
No, they're not.
Why aren't they? Aren't
Because
the
you already
political
have
machines
a
doing
newspaper doing that, right?
Yeah.
And you have a newspaper that reaches everyone in town, and the newspaper is owned by whom?
that? Well, I
The
don't-
rich.
Yeah, right.
And the newspaper information that's given is biased towards the rich.
Okay.
They're not going to be promoting a third-party candidate, are they?
Well,
When was the last newspaper you saw promoting a third-party candidate?
I don't think
Not
ever
very
have.
often.
Yeah, not very often.
Not very often.
Yeah.
So you either get Tweedledum or Tweedledee in almost any newspaper in the country.
Been like that ever since
It's been
I
like
can
that for a
remember.
long time.
Yeah, right.
I can change that.
Okay.
When I go in and get the email address of every single person in town, I now own the newest newspaper in the town.
Because
It's
that
a
is
weekly
the truth.
that will be sent out at no cost and will tell the truth.
Wouldn't the Democratic Party like to have the email address of everybody in the United States
They
to be
could
able to
do
get
it.
a small cost
They have it.
distribution?
They already have it.
I would think they would.
They
Yeah,
have it,
that's
and they're
something-
not sharing it with me.
Uh-huh.
Why aren't they sharing it with me?
Who
They
does
do.
have that? Who
The
has
Republicans have it also.
that? The Republicans have the email
They have
address
it of everyone who donates by
well,
email.
everybody who donates is not necessarily.
Well, it's
everybody.
good enough. They
Yeah.
can raise hundreds of millions of dollars
Yeah,
that way, but
okay,
they
yeah.
don't need it with a guy like Adelson.
Yeah.
If all the work that you get to raise 100 million from 100 million people, one person, Adelson, owner of casinos,
Yeah.
gives that same amount. One person.
Yeah.
You only have to have an email list of one person in order to get
In that case,
the same
yeah.
amount as 100 million.
Thank you, Citizens
Okay?
United. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So once you have the email list of everyone in town, I own the town's newspaper
Okay.
because I can send a newsletter every week telling the truth to everyone in town and guiding them according to what they don't know and should know.
Send them a newsletter.
A newsletter instead of a newspaper.
A blog, like.
Do you know that the Hearst publication just announced that their first major newspaper, I think it's the Poughkeepsie paper,
Yeah.
is going 3 days now instead
Really?
of yeah.
Really?
And
Saturday
that's
daily?
everyone's in the industry is
Yeah.
saying that's
Yeah.
where it's heading.
The newspaper
and they're going
industry is
to
under
non-print.
threat.
They're going to non-print.
Right,
They're
right.
going to what I'm saying I'm
Yeah.
going to do, but I'm going to do it maybe it will be a 3-day thing. Maybe it'll be a weekly. I can do anything I want.
Right. Right.
So once I have the email list of everyone in town, I own the newspaper.
Can they opt out of having that?
Yeah,
sent
they
into
have
their
to. I
email?
have to give them an opt-out.
Yeah, okay.
Unless it's political. But I don't want any trouble. I'll give them the opt-out.
Yeah, sure.
Okay?
Okay.
It's
yeah.
all political.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So once I have the email list of everyone in town, do you agree that that's a valuable thing to have?
Absolutely.
Okay, well
Yeah.
then that's the first thing I want you to agree with is that once I create that list, I'm going to walk up to the mayor's office, knock on the door. The mayor, Zaid, is going to open up the door, and I'm going to see the mayor sitting by the window. I'm going to say, "Excuse me, sir, but what are you doing in my seat?"
I don't understand.
Why-
Because you're a publisher.
Because I own the newspaper, and from now on you do what I say. Otherwise, you're going to have 5,000 angry people telephoning you at home and at the office to complain about your failure to do the right thing.
Oh, I see. You got it directed at him.
Right.
Yeah, I see.
I'm
yeah.
going to get the mayor to function properly.
How are you going to handle the things systemically that are wrong with our society?
Well, there's only 4 reforms that I need, and that'll cure it.
Okay.
That'll
spell
cure
it out.
It'll bring prosperity to the town.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to do.
Spell out four
I'm
things.
going to
Spell
tell
it
the
out
mayor.
while you're
Okay,
at
I
it.
will.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to tell the mayor, look, I'm not looking here. I'm not looking to replace you as mayor. I want you to stay as mayor. But there's 4 reforms that we have to have, otherwise you and I aren't going to be seeing eye to eye with each other. Okay, spell it out. He'll say, what do you want? There's only 4 reforms. Number 1, I want the town's attorney to stop selling variances, zoning variances to Walmart and others. From now on, I want you to focus on saving the rights of homeowners, of small businesses, of people who smoke pot, of people that do radio shows. I want their rights enforced before we lose any more homes and jobs and have more jail sentences that are unnecessary.
That's one issue.
That's the first thing. I want the town's attorney to be the town attorney
You've
general.
been talking about the town attorney
Right.
general for a long
That's
time.
what we need.
Right, right. Okay,
we need
yeah.
to. We
Something
need to
where you got somebody
collectively-
representing the people.
We need collectively to protect our rights because no one is doing it but us. And we insulate and isolate ourselves by saying, I'm not concerned about a cab driver and a 50-cent thing that he pays a tax on. I'm not concerned about a student having to pay forever for student loans that were worthless. We have to start worrying about each other. And we can do it collectively in a town by having the town's attorney enforce our rights before we lose any more rights.
Where do the rights derive from?
The rights are there in the
Constitution?
Constitution, in the statutes, and whatever. But we're losing our rights. We're heading for a militaristic society where
We are
we're
heading
putting
for-
more and more people in jail.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing that you can do, this is a side, not
They
one
are
of the-
putting more and more.
Of
on a
course they are. We
percentage
have
basis
more
there?
than any other civilized
I
country.
know that, but is it getting worse in this country?
Of course it
Yeah,
is, because
okay.
it's easier to prosecute.
Is it still based on
It's
so
a
much
way of
on
becoming
pot?
a judge. If
Is
you
it? Yeah.
you become a successful prosecutor,
Right.
it doesn't matter whether the people are guilty or not, because everyone pleads guilty anyway. They all
Yeah.
plead guilty.
They cop a plea.
They
yeah.
cop a plea, because if you don't cop a plea, you get 30 years.
Yeah, right.
If you cop a plea, you get 3 years. So
It's
everyone
like-
takes 3.
Like an attitude of a serf. Like the attitude of a serf.
It is.
Before
it is.
their Lord.
The law has gone amok.
Uh-huh.
And we started this by saying we don't want the judge to have discretion, because the judge was exercising discretion for his friends. When the friends came before him, he gave them a year, and when the average person goes, they gave him 30 years. So from now on, the statute federal says you got to give 30 years to everyone.
Okay.
And only the prosecutor has the power to give less. The prosecutor has
Would
power.
you have to have an attorney general who's of the right attitude toward
Well,
the system and so forth? And
it'll
hasn't
be
been
a-
able
it'll-
to be bought out by the... Because you're talking about people who are bought out by big money.
We're talking
It's
about a
there in
small
the-
town.
Yeah, okay. yeah.
And you're talking about
well,
the
you
media.
do have a power structure within
You're
town.
talking about the media being owned by me now.
The media being this blog.
The
you
media
put out
being my
to that
newspaper,
email
my
address.
newspaper.
Okay. Well,
I'm going
okay, it's
to
interesting.
have a viral condition in that town. Every single person is going to know what's happening.
Has this sort of thing happened
Never
anywhere?
done, no.
Is
Not
this-
that I'm
it has
aware of. Not that I'm aware
Huffington
of.
Post or
Not
something?
that I'm
they're
aware
going
of. I've
national?
thought of it, and I'm going to do it.
Okay.
And it should be done. I wish anybody would do it. Why do I have to do it? Why do I have to go out and do this? Why can't somebody else do it? I'm willing to do it, but I have it there in open websites for people to do it. I have nothing special here.
What's the other 3 things? You said that's
Okay,
one,
that's the
4.
first one. The second one is this: a tuition-free equivalency college
Equivalency college.
for residents only.
Tuition free
Tuition-free college for residents only.
for residents of that town.
And
for
it will
that-
teach
or-
people how to get a job that will pay $2,000 a week.
Okay, how to get a job that will pay $2,000 a week? How
That's
do you
what
do
the
that?
curriculum will be.
$2,000 a week is sizable.
It is,
in
yeah.
this current market. Yeah.
Here's the way that figure will be calculated, however.
Yeah.
It'll differ.
Yeah.
But I am willing to pay $100 per hour for each hour that a person saves me in technological time per week.
Okay.
So if somebody saves me,
say that again.
I'm willing to pay an
You as a
individual
business
who I would hire a person and
You're
say,
one of a business opportunity.
I'm a small business person.
In that particular community.
Yeah, I'm a small business person.
Okay,
And
gas
I need
station or
help
hardware
because
store?
I've spent the entire weekend on technology. I've spent 100 hours in this Memorial Day weekend, even up to the point where I almost lost coming to your show. I was
Yeah.
still working on it.
Working on the billing.
I was
or
working on billing. I
technology.
worked it out with time slips. I called them up. I had an Indian got on the line. He did a fantastic job, and he cured a problem that I had spent at least 5 or 10 hours on, and he cured it in 15 minutes.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. I had a $50 fee, which I'm happy that I paid.
Yeah, right.
It was
Okay.
well worth it.
Yeah,
they did
sure.
a great job
Saved
for
you
me.
hours,
Did
yeah.
a great job.
Yeah.
But I had
And
to
that's
do
the
it.
thing
But
that-
I had to do it. Why can't I hire somebody to do that for me?
Why doesn't the market just provide that kind of thing?
Because the
I
problem
mean,
is...
somebody would set up a business like you're doing.
But no good. I need
Yeah,
a person in-house.
Uh-huh.
I need
Okay.
a person who's living the problem, and I say, I have a problem, take it over.
Now, you're not talking about yourself. You're talking about
I'm
a person
talking
who's
about-
operating a business in a
I'm
place where you have
talking
your
about
blog.
me,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in New Paltz, Ellenville, or New York City. There are 20 million people like me that are small business people. And we are plagued with technological advances that we can't cope with.
You really-
So that rather than
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
doing what I know how to do, I'm forced into doing what I don't know how to do.
Wow. Okay, that's a big thing. And you did. You set
Yeah.
up the whole paralegal
That's correct.
educational system. That
I
was
set up,
just
I even was licensed.
You were a pioneer in that.
I was
yeah.
licensed, accredited, and I had federal student loans
Uh-huh.
on the very curriculum now that I'm talking about, but going back before internet. It was the technology of past years. I was licensed to teach all that.
And the technology is so daunting now.
Today? Are you kidding?
no,
do
I
you
don't-
know how to set up a router?
A router, well, you plug it in.
It isn't that easy.
Well,
I bought 4, and my son, another person, and myself, each trying independently, could not set up the router.
Well-
And these are known routers.
Like Netgear or something?
It was one of them.
Yeah,
maybe
what-
both. Maybe Netgear and
You just
and
plug it in.
It isn't that simple. I wish
is-
it were. No,
yeah.
it's
Why
not plug-in
isn't it?
simple
Why
because
isn't it? Like plugging in
it has to be
electricity.
compatible. You go through software. You would do certain options, and they don't work. Now what? They don't work. Try it again. I did. Shut off the computer. I did.
Is it-
Start it up again. I did. We did it 8 times. It doesn't work.
Is it a system
And I'm now
problem?
on blue cable instead. I had to plug in the blue cable. I couldn't get it to be wireless. I don't know why. I'm not a technician.
Well, maybe-
I don't want to be a technician.
But why aren't the people who tech? There would be a market advantage.
Who is
to
they? Who is they?
The
And
technical
right
the people
now-
who provide the router would be advantageous if they came up with a system that was simple because they would get the
Look,
market
look,
share
look, you-
of people who have the
all-
problem. that
all
you
you're
have.
doing-
and one that's compatible.
You're the same way as the people who say that in 4 years a new president is going to come along and really help us.
Fair enough.
Today.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
today. What are you doing for me today? That doesn't help me today.
Right.
How do I solve the problem today?
And-
Because I have to roll up my shirt sleeves and do it myself, and I don't want to do it. I want somebody to do it for me. Somebody that's trained in a college to do it for me. I'll pay him. I'll pay him $100 an hour for every hour per week that he saves me in my technical
Save it-
time.
save
I
it-
don't want to do that technical stuff. I'm
Right.
willing to pay for it,
Right.
and there's nobody trained to do it. We're not allowed to teach people in this country. It's an illegal school to train people for a job. It's illegal in every state.
That's interesting to me. I told you I'd aired a program with Kurzweil 20 years ago. We did, and he said you don't need any license to be a software programmer.
Yeah.
You don't need any license. You need a license to be a lawyer, to be a
Okay.
doctor, to be anything else, to be a shoe
Did
salesman.
you get the essence of what I said?
Well, I did
It
kind of.
is
You were
illegal.
emoting.
It
you
is
know,
illegal in every state to set up a school to train people to get a job.
to train people to get a job. That's
Yeah.
not just a placement agency or
No,
something?
no, to train people,
them.
to train them for money.
To
set up a school, to charge tuition, to train people to get a job is illegal in every state. You have to get a license.
Well, it seems to me the whole educational system, the only thing they do trot that out for, the whole educational system is the thing where they'll point out that if you get an education, you're going to get a better job. They'll say a better job.
Let me ask this.
That's the only rationale.
Okay, let me give you a rationale. Let me
me.
see if I can bring the rationale out of you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. We have in this country licensing laws that prohibit the setting up of a school to train people to get an education, to get a job.
Really?
Yes, those are called vocational training laws. You have to be licensed to set up a school to train people to be a cab driver, to train people how to brush a dog's hair.
And is it
it's a school. It's a vocational training.
Is the process, what would be the word, onerous?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You have to have $1 million and wait a year and a half
Really?
to get the
Okay,
license.
I see. Okay.
Okay, it's onerous.
Yeah.
But NYU doesn't have to do it. If you're a college, you don't have to do it. On the day that you set up your course, you write a letter to the Department of Ed saying, we just set up a course of instruction and we're giving it right now. Today is the first day. They don't go through any regulation at all. But the for-profits that try to set up a school with the knowledge they know, they're not allowed to. It's so.
Is that just a thing
So
of
let me
monopoly?
ask.
Is that a monopoly
It's
of
a
power?
It's a state-driven statute that
Yeah.
makes it. Look, what they do is they set up things that become illegal for you to do. So even though in theory you could do it, you can't do it because it's too onerous, and they can take away the license like that.
And they're doing that to protect the interests of people who
Well,
are making
let's
money on
find
another
out. Let's
system.
find out who makes the money on this.
Yeah.
If we don't have any schools at all that teach people how to get a job and prepare them for a job, then what kind of school do they go to instead if they go to any school at all?
I don't know.
It's called a college. They go to college instead. Now, what's the placement rate for colleges putting people into jobs now?
I don't know.
Not very good, would you say?
Well, if you got a humanities degree, it doesn't help.
It doesn't help,
because
right.
nobody cares
Right.
except anything
But what
except
about
money.
the debt that they're charged?
That's getting terribly
That's
high.
getting terrible.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
now here's the problem.
Yeah.
Remember, I owned a school for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the cost of running a school. The cost of giving postgraduate instruction, meaning beyond college, or even college if you want to go that low to college, it's 2 packages of cigarettes for every week of instruction.
Really?
Yeah, that's all that it costs.
Oh.
Well, explain.
Yeah.
Is that amazing?
Well, yeah.
Well,
I'm
but
trying
the
to-
schools are charging $1,000 a week.
Right.
It's only 2 packages of cigarettes.
Right.
Let me explain apples and oranges first to get that
Okay.
out of the way. $1,000 a week is $50,000 a year. That is what many parents pay to have their kid go to school.
That high.
No,
yeah,
it is.
Right,
It's
yeah, right.
it's 20
Well,
to 70
for a year.
20 to 70,000
Yeah, okay,
in that
yeah.
range. Say 50,
yeah.
1,000 a week.
Okay.
You only go to school 32 weeks, but that's
Yeah, I understand.
but it's still 50,000 a year.
yeah.
But that includes travel, clothing,
Yeah.
dormitory, food service, and all that. It's apples.
Yeah.
Oranges is what I'm dealing in. Stripped down, unlicensed, taught at home, in an office space with no library, no dispensary, no presidential grass and home and all, no trucks and no gardeners and no anything. Just the instruction.
No bell tower?
Nothing. Just the instruction.
Okay, yeah.
Live. 30 people in a room. Unlike colleges that have 500 people in a room,
Yeah.
30 people
They
in a
do
room.
now, yeah.
30 people. $2 an hour. 16 hours. It's 15 hours a week, right? For a college. When you go to college, it's 15 hours a week. 15 times $2 is 30. If you paid $15 for a package of cigarettes, that would be 2 packages of cigarettes
$30.
a week in New York, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
That's
right.
all it costs to go to school. Here's how it works.
And you're learning something.
Well,
that's got
you're being
vocational.
taught. You're being taught to get a job that will give you $2,000 a week.
How can we know what jobs are going to be there?
Because
you're talking about cyber
I know,
particularly.
there's one thing in common with every single business person in the country: technology. That's the
Okay.
one thing that's in common.
Increasingly.
Every single person like me needs a helper, needs a number 2 in the business to take over all the technology, so I'm free to go back to what I usually do, but now no longer can do because I'm working in technology that I know nothing about. We've got to cure that with a school. We need 1,000 schools in the country. The college, the junior colleges really should be the place where they do that. But the people they hire that teach psychology, that teach,
Humanities.
they can't teach this course.
Yeah.
They're unable to teach it. But
Right.
the worst thing is this. In a course that needs to teach 100 different disciplines, you're only going to have an hour and a half of discipline number 1.
Yeah.
And then you have to schedule a person to come in for 3.5 hours for discipline number 2, and then half an hour for another person for discipline number 3, 3 days for discipline number 4.
Are you talking about history, geography,
No,
physics?
no, I'm talking about blog marketing, LinkedIn, setting up a router, streaming video, all the 100 different things that we have as technology.
Okay.
I need to have 100 different instructors coming in for 37 minutes, 82 minutes, 3 hours, 14 days, 1 day. How do you structure that?
I don't know.
I do.
Uh-huh.
I'm a school person. I
Yeah.
know how to
You
structure
did
that.
the
I know how to
paralegal
do
thing. You
it.
started the whole
You know how to do
industry.
it? You got to teach instructors. You have to have a school for instructors so that one instructor takes the whole course
Takes the whole course
and teaches the whole course.
can teach each of those
Yes.
things, has learned all
yes,
of them?
absolutely. It's not. You don't have it at the postgraduate level. You
Yeah.
got to teach people enough so they're
It's
at
very
home.
practical, very hands-on, very-
hands-on, so that you can do it. And then there will be a group of people in America that will be the backup to the assistant. That if the assistant can't do it, then there's a backup people that do know what to do.
Well, again, back to the question of why it's so complicated. I can remember going with some friends of mine, Albert Wilking, and they had a kid there. And Albert had a computer, had some pretty advanced and everything. And they had their son there, and he was 7. He had the hair stood up like a stegosaurus. He was walking around, ambled over to the computer, and he was playing the computer. There's a lot of different programs involved, like Vladimir Horowitz plays the piano. He just knew how everything worked. Do all the kids know how to do all this? Do they
They
the
do.
kids don't seem to have any problem. They get everything working
they
perfectly.
do, but supposing that we find out.
I mean, they could sit there.
Supposing that we find out.
I mean, I was under the impression that the young people all know how to do it. It's just with us old people that have a
No,
problem.
that isn't true at all.
Okay,
that
sure,
isn't
set
true.
me straight.
But supposing that we take your concern and we figure out that maybe there is a better way of doing something.
Yeah.
And how does that help me today earn a living?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Therefore, I can't do your system.
I'm wondering again about whether or not the question of joblessness or getting jobs or getting distribution of buying power, which is a larger thing to the people, is maybe systemic to the whole system.
Let me tell you what this is
so
systemic.
that by trying to get people to do jobs that are going to be covered by an algorithm or something. So they won't have all those things.
right.
They'll get a thing where electricity is, you plug in the plug, it works.
Okay, let me
Everything
tell you how
works.
jobs work in America.
Yeah, okay.
We have a system for the higher level jobs. We have a system of colleges and universities
Yeah.
and community colleges.
Right.
And we have prep schools and other things. We have high schools and community colleges and colleges, universities,
Right.
a hierarchy of all of that. And that, for years, has been taking people up and preparing them for the jobs in the 3 major types of employers.
Oh, really? What are those 3? There's
The 3
services
are
and,
government,
government, yeah.
including NGO or non-governmental, same thing,
Yeah.
government, NGO, they trade, they
Government, public sector
go. Yeah,
at all
public
levels.
sector. Number 2, military.
Yeah, that's growth.
And
The
no,
South.
no longer,
Yeah.
no longer. And 3, big business. Now, is
Big business.
government hiring still or not?
Is government
Yeah,
hiring?
is hiring stopped in government essentially? There's a net
Is
outflow of jobs now, right? Outflow.
I don't know. Is that
I
the
know.
case?
They're going bankrupt and they're not hiring anymore.
How do they get done what they have to do without
I didn't
the
say.
people
I said they're not no net new hiring
Okay, why?
because they overhired and they overpaid.
They
have
overhired.
people paid too much, so that we haven't spread the work. We have a few people earning a lot and a lot of people not working.
Right, and few people.
Government
only
is
the
not
assets.
hiring. As a net proposition, government is no longer hiring. They're
Right.
not contributing net to the overall net number of employees in America.
Is it systemic? Are the?
Let me explain how it's
Okay.
systemic.
I mean, is this system? It's like we don't have buggy whip makers
Number 2,
anymore.
let me
Yeah,
explain the
yeah.
second. In the military, are we increasing our military or decreasing it from a manpower standpoint?
I don't know.
We're decreasing it.
We are.
We have more and more
Drones.
weapons. We have more and more.
drones now.
But we're reducing the size of the military. We're pulling people out of countries, aren't we?
Right, yeah, we
What
did
about the big
Iraq.
business? Is big business hiring more people in America?
They hiring them across the seas where they can hire them less cost.
They're not hiring them here.
Not here because
So
they're
the only
paid too much
the
money here.
3 main employers of college graduates in the country are no longer hiring net.
Okay.
Now
How long has that been?
For the past 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years. Oh, you're not talking 30, 40, 50,
No,
100.
no, they were
Okay.
hiring a lot up to recently, but now there's no longer any jobs net, no new jobs.
Lord Keynes said that. in
But
literature.
let me explain where the jobs are. But they really, the jobs potentially are here with small business, except for one thing. They have taken small business years ago and put the shackles on their arms, tied them behind their back, tied their feet to the chair, and we're no longer able to move. We can't hire, and we can't train, and we don't hire as a result.
And
so
is that
now
a-
we don't have jobs, and you're saying, why don't we have jobs? Well, why don't you free up small business, which is the net creator of new jobs anyway in America.
You think it is, right?
Of course it is. Everyone tells you that, but we're not net enough because we have restrictions on us that favored those people that were hiring at one time.
Is that a political thing?
Yeah, of course, everything's
It's a political
Of
thing
course it
because
is.
the big guys have all the money.
Well, no, it's because they passed the statutes.
Yeah, and they have the influence
and their
on the
newspapers said that we need to protect the public by having licensing laws that prevent fly-by-night schools from getting started.
All right.
And you applauded that. I can just see you applauding that, saying, boy, there's another one for the consumer, right?
Well-
you were consumed right out of your property
Well,
at
you
that
didn't
point.
want to be hoodwinked by somebody who isn't
You were
got a going
hoodwinked, but you
concern.
were hoodwinked. You were
Yeah.
hoodwinked by a bigger hoodwink.
Yeah.
They got a little hoodwink here, and you loved that one. That protected you, and they stole your country as a result.
Me being the big time
You
guy.
being the average person reading the newspaper
Yeah.
saying, oh boy, thank God our friendly legislature is setting it up so we can't have any schools in America. Wouldn't that be awful if we had people ripping us off? So we don't have schools as a result. You got what you wanted.
Yeah, crazy Eddie.
You got what you wanted.
Yeah.
You've got to have some fraud, but if you eliminate all fraud, you don't have any activity at all. You got the no activity. Now you don't have any schools. You got the licensing laws that stop the schools from getting started. Now we don't have schools. Now we don't have trained people. Now we can't hire people. Now we have unemployment. You got exactly what you deserve because that's what you wanted. That was the inevitable
Now, who's
result.
the they that you're directing?
They are the electorate
you're-
and the people that
And the political class?
that lie to the electorate.
And the political class
And the
that's
political
in charge,
class that
yeah.
lies to the
The 1%?
and the 1% that takes their orders
That's
from
the
those
they you're
people
talking.
that didn't want small business to compete.
They don't want small business.
They don't want small business competing, and they got it. They got their wish, and now we have no jobs.
Uh-huh.
You
We
got
have-
what you wanted.
Okay, well, then it may be. Do you think there's anything going? Like I said to you before we started, or maybe earlier in the program, Lord Keynes, who set everything up after the Second World War and so forth, and even before, wrote a letter to his grandchildren, and he said, there's something you're going to be confronted with, which is very hard to discern. And he said, it's going to be, when you're in your maturity, it'll be about now, that generation, a letter to his grandchildren, massive, technologically induced unemployment.
There's one other way of creating
Because
that.
those things that you're talking about to be done, it's where the productive process is being taken over by technology.
There's another way
and you
of-
don't need people.
There's another way of creating
I
unemployment.
mean, do you think there's anything systemic
I'll
to
tell you
this,
another
rather
systemic
than
way.
it just being bad
Here's another
business?
systemic way of creating unemployment. Just chop off the hands of everyone.
Or you could just enslave.
That's systemic. Just eliminate the.
But this would be something that's coming apart from the goodwill or the bad will or the profit motive or anything like that against any of those kind of political things that we've thought about or the way we structure our Democrats, Republicans. And it's coming invariably.
Well,
it's coming, and we better get used to
I've
how we're going to
always
live with that kind
I've
of a
always
world.
said that that's 40 or so years away. I'm worried about the next year.
Well, okay.
I want to eat for the next year. I'm not worried about not
Well,
eating
I'll
40
tell
years
you,
from now.
Joe Friendly had a program on Our Nation today that the predicate is being set for an out-and-out police state in this country because the situation is systemically challenging every institution that exists out of history because we're coming to a new relationship with the technology. And it doesn't need people.
Well,
Increasingly, they don't need people to do the things that they've done for the goods and services.
The problem that you have
That's
is that the winds, the fire is being fed by winds that don't belong there. That if we would free up small business, you would find that would be a retardant to the fire that you're aware of that's coming, that's going to
Well,
burn up the prairie and everything else with it. But
I don't think, well, with all due respect, Carl, I don't think, it may be that we want to have unemployment. We want unemployment. We are so, the Full Employment Act, we still go into the Employment Act of 1946. We still allow us to have a system where all the assets are increasingly owned by a tiny plutocratic class. And the people, the only way for the people, the masses of the people, to have any what they call income to buy like bread and maybe a little butter for the kiddies. Now wait a minute, let me finish. The only way to get income or buying power or demand into the hand of the people is for them to have a job on the estate where the assets are productive and increasingly technological and owned by a tiny plutocratic class.
Okay, now that...
Why don't we address the fact...
That's over here, and I agree that there's a problem. It's a problem. That's 40 years or 30 or 20. But
20 or 30, what are you talking, 40
years,
or 30?
Years away.
No, it's coming now.
Well, it's coming now. Right now...
And this 6%,
right now,
where they say we're going to get the unemployment rate down.
Right now, 33% of the country is without a meaningful job.
Okay, and it may go to more.
At least 33%.
It may go to more.
And we could be hiring those people within a year.
Why?
Because because they're not trained. That's why we can't hire them.
You're saying the traditional thing is that they don't have training and knowledge that gives them a skill in order to demand or to require a amount of money coming to them by what they do. It has nothing to do.
If those 33%, how many can set up a router?
You're going. I don't know.
I don't think very many.
Well, you're saying you got a problem there, but
I'm saying that we can cure the problem today for a lot of people, even if your problem is correct. My problem is that we can get them going today, only to face your problem at some future date.
Well, I don't think
I'm not giving up today. I'm not going to allow you to forego today because of your imagined problem for tomorrow.
Well, okay, the problem is here now.
You say it's here now.
We've been talking about this for a number of years.
We can describe the problem now.
No, but the problem is systemic. It is not. It's not subject. The ways in which the society we have to face. You're Occupy. I'm really happy to say you're in a major thing. Occupy should have blood into it, because what you're challenging is you're just using the same keeping the same old system, except you got other kinds of people who are somehow providing, but you're still enshrining the work ethic. And the idea that you're going to distribute to people by what they do rather than what they own.
Look,
they own none of the resources, none of the assets, none of the things that are increasingly responsible for production. You get an algorithm that when it's in place right, and if they just have enough money and everything, it'll take the job of 50,000 clerks. You can't keep making clerks out of them.
A sizable number of people in Occupy and elsewhere are into the back to the land movement, where they want to go back to the land and be able to work the land directly and grow their own food and take care of themselves. There is a property problem of ownership that I see here, that how do they make sure they can stay on the land if someone else owns it and they don't?
They're having instead of all of the corporate assets and the technology that is creating the wealth increasingly in a ratio with labor's input.
Right.
And it's going to the vanishing point, the input of labor.
Okay.
That's this problem we have. All they talk about, the political class, you got to get somebody a job. You got to get somebody to shine your shoes. You got to get somebody to fix your things.
You're saying, in effect, that you're suggesting that we do away with those restrictions that are creating the problem that you see. And I'm saying that before we go to that extent, let's start putting people to work where we can, and work on your problem later on. But I'm not addressing your problem of trying to eliminate the patents, the trademarks, the copyrights, and land ownership and all that.
No, it's not only the patents, and with due respect, it doesn't matter how you're thinking about things, really. What you're thinking of is, this is not a moment of quantitative change on this planet. It's not quantitative. It's qualitative. It's virtually every single institution that has been inherited out of, where have all the assize courts gone? Where have all the habili gone? Where have all the outdated systems gone? It is now a systemic thing, which is across the board. There's a new context that is qualitative. That is, you have to almost think every single institution is out of date. We have to make an encompass of them or something, but it's a systems problem that humanity has been confronted by, and it would be nice if our political or intellectual leadership once in a while face that, and they don't.
Well, what I'm saying is that I
They're
can
just
go
gonna-
into a town of 10,000 people and have fewer problems to worry about than you have. You have a national or international problem. I'm saying let's go into a small town and see if we can deal with those problems and restructure, reform the town.
Okay, good.
And that's what I want to do.
Okay, yeah, we're on different. Yeah,
Okay.
okay, I understand. Okay, good
So-
enough. Good
so-
enough. Let's work together.
Okay,
Carl. Yeah.
the four things,
Yeah.
having the
Yeah, you
Attorney
did
General
yeah.
represent to
Yeah, you've been on that
prevent
for
the
a long
loss
time,
of any
yeah.
more rights.
And you're actually looking at
tuition,
loopholes.
yes,
You're looking at
yeah,
how to
yeah,
loopholes
and
in
Ellenville, and
Okay.
Ellenville, and having the a tuition-free program, which I think should be the fourth year of high school. We ought to train people in high school to get a job and not to go to college. Let college be after they're working, but don't try to go to college to get a job. It's not working any longer.
Mm-hmm.
We need to train people to get a job as the fourth year of high school.
So you want they used to
it's
call
not
that
vocational. It's not
training.
vocational.
Oh, it isn't. Why
Doing
isn't it?
routers is not vocational.
Well, it is.
It
Why
is
isn't
not.
it? Why
It's
isn't it?
something. It's like the English language. You don't work in America, self-employed or otherwise, unless you're competent with all these new disciplines. It is
Yeah,
a
but-
language that
well,
has to
you
be
had to-
learned.
you had to have
it's not
plumbers, you
work.
had to
It's
have
not a
electrician.
blue-collar job.
Well, it is.
It's
Seems
not
to me.
blue collar.
Technology.
It is
seems-
the where the billions are being made.
Well-
The people that rob banks have those skills. This is a higher skill than you can imagine. You need it to earn a living now. All
okay.
these people that are humping their computers on the back, there's
Yeah.
no blue collars there.
Yeah,
These are people that are on their way, hopefully, maybe, to becoming the Madoffs of the world.
Wait, Madoff was a crook. He was
Well,
a-
I mean,
yeah.
if
Yeah.
you have a computer, you could then be crooked if you want. You need this technology to succeed in America. Whether you're going to be crooked or not, you need the technology. It is no longer a blue-collar job.
Well, why can't they have just plug-in technology that works?
They're working on it. There's
Yeah,
different RDF and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And they're trying to have compatibility and so on. But today, people want to eat, and they're not going to wait for your compatibility to work out.
They got the internet working. It works.
They don't. It doesn't
works.
work.
It
doesn't.
does.
It only works
Isn't-
up to a certain point.
Well,
and then you got to call, and they get people from India on the line. They
Well,
have it. Everyone in India is working on the phone calls from America.
Well, yeah, but it is working. The internet
Is
way
it
is like a
working?
miracle.
What they do is they thrust their costs off on me. That they make me wait an hour in line in order to get 5 minutes of advice instead of having enough people on the line to handle it as it comes in. So they're taking their costs and throwing them onto me. It's just an added cost of technology. But what I see here is that we can create a lot of new employment right now, in spite of all the problems of the world. That the barriers that we have today should be eliminated, so we can train people and hire them, and deal with the problems with a better educated public, who will then be better equipped politically to handle the issues that you see here. But if we don't train people better, then the same group of corrupt people are going to be handling these issues and not doing it for you and me. We've got to have a better educational system to handle it, and the high school level in a small town can be the place where the reform takes place. It'll give people the needed education to allow them to get a job, because just speaking English is no longer sufficient. You got to have technology plus English.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I know you did that, and I take my hat off to you for starting that. That got to be a big school. That
Yeah.
thing you started.
Yeah.
On your own.
Well, there were
from
20,
the startup,
yeah.
the whole business of training
Yeah.
paralegals,
Yeah.
which is now everywhere. 'Cause
Everywhere.
And
The community-
the legal system is, if you want something complex, the legal system is something Cherry-Garesque.
Well,
I mean, it's insane. Nobody can understand
within
it. It's so,
2 years,
and it's so corrupt.
Within 2 years, the community colleges in America picked up my program and offered it on a watered-down basis to high school graduates. You used to
Were
have
they
to be
ripping you off in that?
No, it's free to do that. There was no trademark, patent, or copyright. They could do any. They
But
could
you
do
had
it.
a major school.
Today. Well, I've urged all the community colleges in America to train this technology program that I'm saying.
Yeah.
I've offered them to them. They won't do it because the people they have employed can't teach it. How can
Yeah,
a
you
person
said you thought you could be one person could teach
you
it all.
need one person to teach it because of the
then you
scheduling.
got to have a jack of all trades.
No, you have to have competent people, and then
Yeah.
they will be trained to.
Competent people are going to understand all the nuance of
Not
all the
all.
different kinds of things, and
Look,
this thing's got 30
look,
watts, and that's got
look,
70 watts.
If there's 100 different disciplines,
Yeah.
would you take somebody to train that has none of those disciplines, or would you look for somebody with 17 of them, or 18, or 19? And then that's a good base. You can teach them easily. So you take people already in tune, but they don't know half of it. So you teach them the half, then they can sit in class and go from one course to the other, and not wait for a teacher who is lost in the cab on 57th Street because Mayor Bloomberg has deliberately created congestion in New York City. I almost missed the show because of the congestion that the mayor has created.
I know,
deliberately.
I was tied up coming
deliberately,
here too. Yeah.
Deliberately.
Why did
because
you
they put parking lots in the middle of the streets in New York. They put parking lots in the middle of our streets.
That's crazy.
What is he, crazy?
Oh, well, there are a lot of instances of that kind of
He
thing.
did it because he wants to charge the London type congestion pricing, $25 to enter New York, and that'll give him more money to hand out to his friends. It's crazy what they're doing here.
System's out of control and everything like that. I said earlier, Joe Friendly played this thing. Do you think we're coming, Occupy, congratulations, let's breathe life into it.
Okay.
We're trying to do that here. We're in a course looking
Congratulations,
ahead.
I hear that
they
you
got
got a new
the
contract.
franchise going, so they got a chance to see 10 years into the future.
Terrific.
And the spirit of Occupy is alive and well here, and I think it should be.
Absolutely.
That's the thing that's going horizontal, looking at everything. That's where I want to go. Looking at everything, not trying to get a palliative or something which deals with the outdated system and everything, but they need to have something that is of that nature. In my way of
Let me
thinking.
explain why the instruction is only 2 packages of cigarettes a week.
Yeah.
If you have a office space classroom with no green, no housing, no automobiles,
What happens
no
to
library.
all the courses in the humanities and the long lists of irregular Latin verbs and poetry and music and all the great things?
You can have that, but you don't have to have the elaborate structure. You can still teach that, but you don't need a dispensary.
But that's not going to get, if you go to a place like that, it ain't going to get you a Rolodex on Wall Street like it would if you went to, Harvard
Let me
Law
explain
or
the
something,
cost now. Let me
yeah.
explain the cost so people understand. This is important. The cost of instruction is only 2 packages of cigarettes per week.
I know, that's pretty low.
Okay, now here's why it is. If you take an office space with 10 classrooms, 30 people per classroom. Classroom number 1, 30 people each pay $2 an hour. That's $60. Would somebody work for $20 an hour today?
I think probably some
Yeah,
would.
someone.
Yeah,
Not everyone, right?
Yeah, right.
But I could get some people.
Yeah.
How many people do I need to teach in that one room?
For 30 people, 1?
Only 1.
Right.
So if you're saying that not everyone would take $20 an hour, but some people would, I can probably find a teacher.
Yeah, I would think so.
Then I have $40 left over for that room. But the room is used 12 times in the day. That's $500 that's there available for overhead. Times 10 classrooms for that day is $5,000 over and above the teaching cost. And in the course of a month, $150,000 towards overhead.
That's what Eb Dirksen would call real money.
That's real money.
Right.
So you can easily charge
And
$2 an hour.
You would have to be doing this in the way you perceive it, not so much like in New York City or something, but in a town where you are able to gain newfound authority for the operation of that whole society by having set up a connected interlinking network of people that you're in touch with.
How far could 10 people go in New York City if they knocked on every door?
Knocked on every door in New York City?
Yeah, that wouldn't be possible, would it?
Well, there's a lot of dope.
Okay, so in a town of 10,000, you could do it.
So that goes back to your thing about
right. That's why you need a small town.
Yeah.
Why you can bring reform in a small town because you can afford to have 10 people knocking on doors. You can't have 1 million people not a million.
Right.
It's one person per 1,000.
Yeah. You want to get a place where you can concentrate the attention.
I can't have 8,000 people walking around New York. I can't afford it.
Right.
And they wouldn't be allowed in anyway.
How did you happen to come to select New Paltz? That's the place where I used to hang my hat.
Because it's in Ulster County, and
Yeah.
it's one of the it's the highest foreclosure percentage in New York State.
No kidding.
Yep.
New Paltz?
That's
No,
Ulster
Ulster
County.
County.
Ulster County.
Does that include Ellenville?
Ellenville, I
Ellenville?
know, is in Ulster County. New
Yeah.
Paltz, I'm not sure.
Okay, and that's the place you're actually looking at,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
are you getting underway with that and
Yes,
everything?
yeah,
And
yeah.
how have you gotten in touch with people up
Yes,
there?
I have. Yeah, I have some
I have
interested
people I could
people.
put
yeah.
you in touch with that
I
know
have,
that area
I
well.
have very interested
That's a
people.
beautiful college town.
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a.
So you'd want to get it to where you have a certain, and that place could become a place of success.
Yeah.
For the people, that could become a model
The
for
mayor is
other
a Green
things that
Party
could
mayor.
grow.
He's a Green Party mayor.
That guy did. He ran. There was a guy that ran for up there like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. There's
Yeah,
a
Green
that's
Party.
it's a great town.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous country.
Yeah.
Good place. The countryside and
Yeah.
everything. Well, that's the thing. And are you working on that? Are
Yeah,
you all
absolutely.
along?
Yes.
You're doing that, right?
I have the statistics. I've got people that and I've looked at the bus schedules, the short line. I know there's only one bus a day you could go up and one that you could come back to both places. I know the fare. I'm looking at every aspect of it, trying to decide how I can go up there, whether I should have an office. I dealt with a person that has office space up there. I'm
Yeah.
trying to see what the mechanics are of getting set up there. I'm not quite sure how
It's
to.
very daunting.
yeah.
Do you ever get to where you'd like to just say the hell with it and
No,
retire to
don't
Hawaii
ever
or
do
something?
that. Don't
No?
ever do that.
You don't
You'll
want
die.
To, that's,
You'll
that's
die.
a challenging
You'll die.
thing to keep you busy. You want to keep
Yeah.
busy that way,
Yeah.
trying to make a
Yeah.
difference, right?
You know, people
for
don't
you,
believe it. You
Carl.
know how old I am?
No, you're about 35. You
Yeah,
look.
I'm 76.
76.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, you're
yeah.
beginning to get a few years, right? Yeah. Well, okay.
I got 25 years left.
Well, when I was a mere lad of 76, I was in great physical shape. I'm here to assure you, Consular, that it's all downhill from where you is. I'm 77, and I've got some problems that I hate to tell you about that may be over the horizon. But congratulations on trying to put all that together and everything like that. And it's really good to see you, Carl. We got to get together personally.
Absolutely.
Come over, have coffee,
Absolutely.
see the dog.
Absolutely.
You know Humphrey.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
that and everything.
Yeah.
And give my best to the family and
I will.
everything like that.
I will.
And as usual, you're one of the busiest men ever in all my life I've met. You are working. How many hours do you sleep?
I sleep probably 5 at most. Yeah.
Good God
Yeah.
bless you, young man.
And
Good
I have
young
to
man.
and I have to find things to do for the other.
You're one of
other
the
hour, yeah.
busiest people I've ever in all my life known. And it's your pleasure in the audience to have another enlightening conversation with. You're building off things you've done, the idea of the
Yeah.
Attorney General,
Yeah.
get some power in the hands of a judicial system that supports the people rather than the vested interest. That's a very good idea. It ties in with what you're thinking about there, too.
You know how
as a model.
to cure the excessive prosecution problem? Charge all of the costs of incarceration to today's homeowners. For every prosecution where you have 50-year jail sentence,
Yeah,
multiply that by $30,000 a year,
Yeah.
and charge the people today for the full amount of the prosecution.
They'd be up in arms
And
anyway.
right. So make a budget of $3 million worth of incarceration and
Yeah.
let the prosecutor allocate it.
Boy, you've got a million of them, pal. Your pleasure to have had the perception of Carl Pearson, a civil rights, and as you can see, antitrust attorney. And Carl's got, you can go to the Law Mall is a hell of a site. You've got all kinds of information. Hardest working per, Drupal or something?
Yeah.
And what's your son's name again?
He doesn't like to have his name mentioned.
Oh,
so
okay,
I
he
won't-
doesn't
I
have his
won't.
name. But anyway,
So CarlPerson.com
it seems
is
to me
my,
your whole
yeah.
bailiwick
Yeah.
is very cyber-wise
Yeah.
and very cyber-wise
Yeah.
and everything like that. But thanks a lot for all the work. Thanks for coming
Thank
in.
you. Thank
and in
you.
the audience, thanks for viewing. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. That's it for now, Carl. Once again, thanks very
Thank
much
you.
indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.